I would love for the politicians and media in my country who made such a fuss about trans people being allowed to keep our organs to know what it's like. What it's like to not know whether you're safe going outside, day or night. What it's like to have to educate not just your family and friends, but your teachers, your boss, even your doctors about your very existence. I would love for them to know the euphoria and joy that can come from a simple government document. I sometimes wonder whether they know what they're saying when they publicly call us sick and depraved. I wonder if they understand how their words can skew the perception of the public, turn the unknown into the feared, and the feared into something that must be annihilated. For the past 40 years, doctors and register offices in Slovakia have required transgender people to undergo castration, our reproductive organs physically removed from our bodies in order to change our gender markers. The law, unlike in other countries such as Finland or Czechia, never required this, but it also never forbid it. The vagueness of it created space for a tyrannical practice that forced so many of us to choose between a safer existence and bodily autonomy. I remember a phone call sometime in 2019. I picked up the phone and I could hear my friend saying, "Hey, do you know how I can get around to that surgery? You know, I don't want it, I want children in the future, but I just can't take it anymore. I just want to graduate." You see, in Slovakia, transition is only legal from the age of 18. And if you don't change your documents before you graduate secondary school, you cannot change your name and gender marker on it afterwards. Doing so on university degrees has only been possible since 2018. Now, imagine being 18, like my friend, and having to choose between your literal reproductive rights and being able to live life a bit more peacefully. I know of so many people who couldn't get jobs without changing their documents. I know of people who couldn't get apartments without changing their documents. If they wanted to survive, not live better lives, survive, they had to give up their bodily autonomy. These were not rare cases. These were the stories of many trans people in Slovakia until around 4 months ago. On April 21st, 2022, the Ministry of Healthcare in Slovakia published official guidelines standardizing the process of transition, as well as rules for doctors in regards to giving out notes for legal name and gender marker change. Not only was finally the entire process standardized after 40 years, but one thing was clear. Castration was no longer going to be a requirement. I remember it like it was yesterday. We couldn't believe it. The air felt fresher than it ever has. It filled our lungs so completely. Everything felt alive. We knew it wasn't perfect. We knew it wouldn't last, and it didn't. But for that one day, we didn't care. For that day, for the first time, In a long, long time, we had something to celebrate. We could breathe. I got into queer activism because I wanted to educate. I wanted to bring important information and new perspectives to people. I now work as a youth worker and trainer. Teaching people about queer topics is my literal job. I've seen so many levels of knowledge, from fellow queer activists to people who don't even know what labels like lesbian or bisexual, let alone trans, mean. I know that people are not inherently hateful. It's just easier to hate something that a majority hates, especially if you don't understand it. Hate comes from fear, and fear comes from the unknown. I know that when I sit here, I probably don't have to explain to you what being trans means. You either already know, or you know how to find out. You speak English. The world's information is at your fingertips. But what about the people who don't? We assume that the important information will find its way. But does it? What messages are being broadcast in our countries? Why is it that here I can have deep, meaningful conversations about complex queer topics, while back home I'm stuck explaining to people why we should be allowed to keep our organs? I refuse to keep letting people in power take our space, speak over our voices, and dominate these conversations. Let us tell you about the insanity of gender. Let us show you the beauty of queer joy. Let us bring you our complexity. Information about queer people should not have to be earned with education. It's things we all must have access to. We cannot survive in a world that refuses to see our humanity.